Hey guys, Cod here with my newest video. This will be a BNL Burn Out the Night guide. One of the player dungeons, your typical 3 boss dungeon. So once you get in here, go ahead and buff up, and the first thing you're going to want to do is head up along this little path I've outlined in yellow. This will take you along the edge of this cliff and avoiding that mob you see up there. Follow that up until you reach the lava. This trail politely outlined by our mage here. You have a couple options here. You can either go around through the dark lava, because that doesn't do any damage, or go straight through on the dotted line there like I'm about to. Objective basically to get to the other side of this little lava pit. Once you do, you're going to want to move in kind of an L shape. Just normal run should work to the left and then to the right to get up the hillside here. And up these stairs, you'll find yourself at the first boss. Crystal Wolf, probably the easiest boss in the dungeon, but it can be a little tricky if you're not paying attention. One of the things you won't see in this video, he does do a move where he splits the damage he takes with a member of your team. He didn't do that in this particular run. He doesn't always do it, but when that happens, of course, healer be aware. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and engage him. When you do, personally as a tank, I like to turn him in a certain direction to make sure I know I have aggro. DPS and heals, you're going to want to stay at about max distance, shown here. Otherwise, this is a pretty straightforward fight, not a whole lot of excitement. He does do one move, shown here, which is kind of a howl type thing, which does 5 to 10% maybe of your damage, but not a whole lot, not a very difficult boss in that sense. He doesn't hit too hard. He does do a lot of unique debuffs though. The first one that we're going to see here in a second is a Hemorrhage, and this essentially is a DOT, damage over time, takes a very small amount of your health, nothing you really need to worry about. Otherwise, pretty tank and spanky to be honest with you. The next debuff he does, as we creep up on that here, will be a shredded armor. This does stack, so it can get a little intense, but armor count should be high enough to avoid that type of thing. Mortal Wound, it's labeled as you are not long for this world. I'll be completely honest with you, I don't really know what that is. I've never seen it have any sort of significant impact. I assume it means if you don't receive healing or something, you might die, but again, I've never had an issue with that. Other than that, the only thing he'll do is he'll start spamming his howls at about 50%, like you can see here, where he just does it over and over again. I think he does it a total of 4 or 5 times, which will do, if you guys aren't healing properly, about 20, 25, 30% of your total health. So that's pretty much all there is to the Crystal Wolf. So just go ahead and lay into him. He shouldn't move at all during the fight. Nobody should need to. So just finish him off real quick, and that's all there is to it. Next, when you are done with the first boss, go ahead and head through the gate in the back and hang a right, the only direction you can go. There will be some Indiana Jones type balls rolling at you. Easily avoided. Just stick to the left, like the trail you see here. If they do hit you, they'll do a lot of damage, so watch out for that. Once you get up to this little circle thing here, you're going to want to do an L pattern like you kind of did in the beginning. Move slightly to the left, and then slightly to the right. You should run right up. Watch out for the next rolling ball heading in the opposite direction. Easily avoidable, but like I said, they do a lot of damage if you're not careful. Go ahead and head through this little rib cage here. Some people like to hop up to the right to avoid this mob. It's more commonly seen to just go ahead and kill them. Reason why is if you ever need to pull out of the boss fight, you'll have a safe place to go to do that and reset. This mob's pretty easy. One of them does have the ability to heal, so just be aware of that, but generally DPS should be more than enough to go ahead and finish that off without any complications. So kill these guys real quick and get ready for the second boss of BNL, Warlord Zodiac. This is probably the hardest boss in this dungeon, to be honest with you. I mean, he's easy enough, but if you underestimate him, he'll take you guys out. So just be aware of that. Tank will go ahead and engage him. Typically, the formation your guy's going to want, max distance, DPS, and heals. If you have a melee DPS, he's going to want to be about halfway between the tank and the healer. DPS and heals move left to right with the tank later on in the fight when necessary. Pretty simple if you follow that generic pattern. Attacks-wise, he does not do any debuffs, but he does have a lot of random spells that you'll see. The first of which starts around 60%, where he does an AoE type thing. You'll see a giant red circle and a meteor will come down on it. If your tank is good, you should be able to just fight right through it. If your tank is bad, he may want to run to the outside of these circles to avoid that. DPS and heals, just make sure you move right to left with the tank. If you guys do need to run out of the circle though, do not run towards the rest of your group. You don't want to risk getting them damage. Always move left to right, not towards your DPS or team. So he'll go ahead and continue to do the meteor AoE here, but that's about it for a while until we get to about the last 20% of his health, and this is where things get hard. He'll start doing a new AoE, which is a poison. You'll see the ground turn green. Does a couple things. It'll either come up as a bubble or just as a green splash. You'll want to get away from this as much as you can. It does have a pretty significant radius. Once again, team move right to left with the tank. Avoid this poison at all costs. Does not matter how good of a tank you are, this will do a whole lot of damage. The other way this appears, that you'll see here in a moment, is a small bubble that'll form up and explode. You want to avoid this bubble because this does about 50% of your health when it does explode. Fortunately, we killed him and had time to get away, barely. So that's pretty much all there is to Warlord Zodiac. I mean, as long as you guys stick right to left with the tank and keep your distance, you should be just fine. After that, head out the gate in the back again. This is where you're going to have to do a little hill climbing. Now, I'd recommend heading just on the other side of the arch here. Look for the divider where dark and light kind of meet on the hillside there. Use your auto target, and that will pull up one of the mobs on the top of the hill there. When you have your auto target, just click on the portrait of the mob. You'll start chasing him, hold jump, and you'll hop up to the first ledge. Once again, look for the divider between dark and light. Move over in that direction, and repeat the same process. If you get stuck halfway up the hill, don't panic. Just drop back down to the ledge, move a little bit in either direction, try again, and you'll find yourself hopping right up, no problem. Once you get to the top, give yourself a little extra space to make sure you don't fall back down, but just simply walk off to the left, and you are ready to face the last group mob that you'll face in the dungeon. So make sure everybody gets up the hill. Some people struggle. I gotta emphasize that you gotta be patient with these guys. Sometimes, you know, some people have a hard time with those hills, but go ahead and clear this mob just like you did the one before Warlord Zodiac. Very simple. One of them does have the ability to heal though, but once again, if damage is good, you won't have to worry about that. So kill those guys real quick. After they're dead, go ahead and head through the archway here and immediately turn left. Once you turn left, just keep the wall on your left side and run around the edge of this little pen here. You're going to want to have your heals and your DPS standing in front of the cage right here. It's imperative that they do. When your DPS pulls, they're going to want to run to that spot too. So tank will hop up on top of the cage. This can be a little tricky too. Just be patient. When the tank is in a good position, he'll typically tell you when he's ready. Tank, you're going to want to be as close to the edge as possible with your body kind of aligned with the right side of the door there. So almost dangling off the edge really. DPS will shoot ranged DPS at the boss, auto target to him. DPS run back to the spot they originated at. When they're close enough, just simply aggro and the boss will be locked onto the tank. This will avoid any AoE damage the boss does, meaning the healer only has to focus on the tank. Once she's set in place, heals and DPS are free to move to a comfortable position. If for any reason when you pull and she hops up on the cage with you, don't panic. Just simply drop down where the DPS and heals are and fight her down there. In this particular pull, she was not in melee range for me, and that does happen as well, but your auto attacks will generate enough morale to keep your aggro up. And when you get to this point, it's pretty much just heal the tank and damage the boss. So go ahead and do this until she gets down to, I'd say, close to 5%. When the boss gets this low, the tank will then hop off the cage and drag her out towards the middle. If you kill her by the cage, she'll fall into the cage and become extremely difficult, if not impossible, to loot. So tank will drag her out into the middle, damage just continue on, heals focus on the tank. This is when she has her chance to do the most damage, possibly even change aggro, but when you do this, she should be so close to dead that it really shouldn't matter. So that's all there is to it for BNL. Loot-wise, you do get a couple T4 pieces through this dungeon, and of course with every flare, you have that chest there, which will give you the opportunity for some additional loot, which you can either use for yourself or your alt, or even sell, depending on how good the loot is. So that's pretty much it for my Burn Out the Night guide. Just simply exit through the back, you're done. I hope you guys found this useful. Hope it was helpful. Once again, I appreciate all the support I'm getting inside the community. YouTube channel hasn't quite kicked off yet, but that's okay. In-game, I get a lot of support, and for those of you who are paying attention, once again, I do appreciate that. So keep your eye out. Moving forward, you'll probably see some new guides for some of the lower dungeons that I'll be doing, like AGL, FML, things like that. A couple other random guides as well. So that concludes this video. Once again, thanks for stopping by, and I will talk to you guys all later.